Hi, everybody. My name is Adina, and I'm here with Joana and Simon, who's back there. I'm a visual journalist, and Joana is a visual journalist as well, and Simon is a data journalist. And we work at Neue Zürcher Zeitung, NZZ for short. And maybe for people who are joining around the world, NZZ is a Swiss daily newspaper, and this is also, it's a Swiss daily newspaper, a national newspaper. It's based in Zurich. But this will be the first thing I will talk about a little bit about our team, about NZZ in general, and then we will dive into like 2 use cases where you can see how we work with data, how we work with visualizations, and also especially visual storytelling. So one of those cases is about mapping the war in Ukraine, and the other one is about the dangers of bicycling in Zurich. And afterwards, it already started, I guess, questions and answers and apéro. Yes, so this is our newspaper, or it was our newspaper. And for you to understand a little bit where we're coming from, for the longest time, NZZ didn't want to have any images in the newspaper. It was only text. And then only in 2005 did we actually switch from black and white images to color images. Nowadays, it looks increasingly like this. Luckily, otherwise we wouldn't be here. So our articles are visual, they're data-driven and sometimes interactive. And they are done by a quite large team in the meantime. You can see it here, we're 23 people in the visuals team. We are headed by Barnaby Skinner, and we're constantly growing so that I always have to update this slide. There's also some people who don't have a picture yet. And yeah, we are visual journalists, we are data journalists, we have researchers, and we have developers in this team. And I like to kind of put the things that we do into 3 different categories. So we have visual data-driven news stories, we have stories where we experiment with new formats, and we have visual investigations and analysis. And to give you an idea what this is, so the visual data-driven news stories, they're kind of our daily bread. So we're a daily newspaper. We do things out of the day, out of the week. For example, on the left, you can see a visual explainer about the conflict in Ukraine. This was before it became a war, just for people to understand what's going on there and what kind of situation is developing there. And we used maps and data visualizations to explain this. And on the right, you see a recent article about the primaries in the US, where we explain and contextualize polling data. New storytelling formats. Here we experiment with new technologies and new ways how to lead the user, the reader, through the story. So on the left, you can see a story about the Ukrainian counteroffensive, and the reader can scroll through and see this kind of possible path that the Ukrainian troops could take. And to the right, you see a very visual story about an apartment block in Ukraine that was hit by a missile. And there we use photogrammetry, we use photography to portray or tell the stories of these families that live there in that apartment block. And then visual investigations are, I like to think of those as stories where we kind of have an exclusive insight through some method. Especially with visual investigations, we work with social media videos, we work with documents, with satellite imagery to find new things, to find new insights. For example, here to the left, there's a story about a hotel that collapsed in the earthquake in Turkey, which it shouldn't have collapsed. It was supposedly earthquake safe. And we were tracing this kind of corruption that was happening during the construction of this hotel. And to the right, you see a very intricate data visualization that reflects a very intricate data analysis by Simon Haas and Jonas Oesch about the energy balance in Germany. And throughout all of this, we create tools, we use a lot of tools, we have to be fast, we have to be efficient. That's always very important. And we also try to update our resources accordingly. There's two things I like to point out. One is the visual style guide. It's actually online for everyone to see. And we have our colors there, we have our typography there, and it's actually built on an open source kind of library or framework created by Interactive Things. So really Interactive Things is a lot in our work, which is really nice. And to the right, you can see the Q toolbox. These are multiple tools that we can use to create data visualizations. And it's expected from all the editors in the across the newspaper, newsroom, to be able to use these tools. So this also gives us a lot of leeway to concentrate maybe on a little bit longer investigative or interesting data stories. Yeah, and this was a little bit about NZZ and the visuals department, and I would now like to tell you a little bit more about an interactive map that we created to track the war in Ukraine. You can also, there's an English version, and you can also go and look at it there. I don't know if, I always like to know who uses the map. So if you use the map, you have feedback. Simon is also in that team. We love to hear your thoughts. So this is the map. The reader can track how the war has been going from the very beginning of the war in February 2022. And they can click through time, and they see different kind of events that they can click on, attacks, satellite images, and they can learn more about these events by clicking on these icons. You can also see the areas where the Russian forces are and how they advanced throughout this war. And to give you a little bit of background, so the map was created by Simon, who's here, Michel Grautstück, who's a developer in our team, by me and by Kasper, who were designers in this context. And we have a team that updates the map every day. This is actually our whole data journalist team. So there's still a lot of work going on there. Yeah, and it was kind of special how this map was created. It was created in a day. We started working on it on February 24th, and we put out the first version on the 25th of February. We did have some brainstorming before, like 10 days before, about, in general, what we would do if Russia would invade Ukraine. And this is when this idea came up, and we did some kind of data checks, like what could we even show, what kind of data do we have, but we didn't start any design work before February 24th. There was already a lot of work going on, kind of tracking this build up at the border. So yeah, we didn't really get around to really starting until February 24th. And then, because the first version was really quick, we continued to kind of operate on the open heart, as we like to say, and to create iterations. And these, I would like to talk a little bit about these iterations and about what guided this process. And I think what's important to know is that we didn't set out with these principles, this is what we're going to do, because the situation was always evolving. It was always changing, and it was also the first time that we created such a map for our readers. So this is kind of a reflection of the different steps we took and what was always important to us while we were working on the map. So the first thing we noticed is that we have to make it really clear what are the newest developments. When people come onto the map, they want to see what is new, what happened. We had people coming twice a day at the beginning of the war to see the map. And we were also updating it really frequently then, much more frequently than we are now. And yeah, just to give you a little bit an idea of what went out at the beginning, I debated if I should show this here at Interactive Things because I'm embarrassed. But this was the very first version, which went out on the 25th of February. It's just these dots, and that's kind of it. And then 2 days later, there were already so many things happening that we decided to build in this toggle where you could see all the events or just the newest events. So that was kind of a first step. And of course, we also started clustering and creating better icons that make it clear that you can click on those events. And then we still had this toggle, and we started to, actually, you don't see it very well in this screenshot, but we had kind of different shades to denote when something happened, if it was still something that was going on, or if it was something that had already passed and was kind of an older event. And then after those iterations, we wanted to give the readers the option to go back even more in time. We noticed that there's so many events. Even when you click on all events, you don't understand the map really anymore. So we wanted to have a timeline that readers can click through. And I think here the journalistic perspective also comes in, that we didn't want to make it completely just discoverable, that people here's the information and please just look, take your time. Because in the context of NZZ, it's a daily newspaper, so people come, they want the information quickly, then they leave and continue to the next topic. So we wanted to give the readers the possibility to delve into the developments, but also if they just want to be kind of taken by the hand and shown things, that would also would work as well. And this is a sketch. We came up with this idea to have a summary with the timeline that would help people understand certain developments. And this is how it looked in the end. You can see also that we don't have every single day, but we have kind of time spans. And this is also a very journalistic decision in the end, a content decision, where we say, okay, this is kind of an important step. This is an important development. We summarize this together, and then the next thing comes. So, for example, here there's fighting going on in Lysychansk and Severodonetsk, I think. You can read it here. And so this is the focus of this kind of time span. The next thing was that we provide timely context to the map. As I was saying, the kind of the nature of the war would change. And so we had to adapt how we kind of describe what we're seeing. And I think you can see this really nicely in our how we describe this data layer, this areas data layer in the key of the map, the legend of the map. So this is always the same data layer. I will talk a little bit about that later. But in the beginning, we called these red areas the newly occupied areas. We got a lot of feedback that, hey, you know, they're not occupied yet. There's maybe just a Russian presence there. And yeah, just presence doesn't mean control, right? So we changed that to calling it Russian advances. And we started to differentiate between newer advances and older advances, like places where they had been for a longer time. And this was especially during the time where there were large advances towards Kiev, as you can see here. And then as it became clear that the areas that they are in, or they were in, they are occupied, and there's the horrible things that are found when they are not occupied anymore. And as the war became more static, we changed it to like a mix. So if Russian troops are there for a longer time, then it's occupied. And if if the advances are new or the areas are new, then it's an advance. And we also have below the map, we have an article that describes like what is shown, what we not show, kind of the data sources. And then the fourth and last thing is the data that we show. So also ensuring that we have timely data, that it's interesting to our readers, and ensuring that it's accurate and we can trust the data sources. So you can see here that there's actually 3 data sources in this map. There's the events, things that happen. There are these areas that I was talking about, and then the strategic layer, we call it, which actually changes also throughout this war. So here you can see the position of Russian troops. At the moment, when you would visit the map, you can see the fortifications, so where the Russians have dug their, I wanted to look up that word in English, trenches, yes. I was just, exactly, thank you so much. Yeah, and just to give you a background of those different, where these data sources come from. So for example, the position of the Russian troops, Simon actually found a veteran from the US Army who used to track Russian troops. And he was doing this on Twitter, and Simon contacted him and started to talk with him, and realized that he was doing a really thorough job. That was his job for years in the US Army. And so we made a deal with him that he would provide that information to us in a like machine readable format. And Simon helped him create a very like based on the map that we had. They created a map that was very similar, but had more kind of military information. And this map was also very successful in those kind of military circles as well. And we had the data from him to use for our map as well. And just as a background, something we like to do is then we talk to these people, we have calls with them. I always look very critical, and Simon looks very nice. No. And we maybe also talk to other experts and ask them, like, do you also see it like this? Can this be true? What do you see in this data? Then these events, which are mostly attacks, but we also put our the articles from our correspondence on the map, and we show satellite images. This is just a spreadsheet on Google Slides, and this is what the data journalists often keep up to date. And we have a principle that's in journalism in general, you have to have 2 sources, independent sources that verify this information, and this is how we proceed with filling in this Google Sheet with events, with things that happen. And then finally, these areas, I think is very interesting. We rely on Live UA Map. It's a Ukrainian company, and there's also the Institute for the Study of War, and which is also something that people use or journalists use. It's an American think tank. And when you compare, this was the same day in the 3 data sources in the same day. The one on the right is just for comparison, a Russian source. So Live UA Map is much more conservative in how they attribute area to Russia. Now with this kind of static front lines, it's very similar, but in the beginning it was, we decided to go with them because they were being conservative, because they were being very careful with what they attributed to Russian forces. Yeah, and maybe just to kind of close this topic, as I said, in the first 4 weeks, people would visit the map twice a day, and we had over 40,000 visits per day in the first year. And even now, people still come back to the map and check in on it. We also, for now, the second year is coming up of this war, and we create sometimes kind of additions then to summarize the whole year based on this map. And we continue to develop it further. So as I said in the beginning, please come to us. We love to hear your thoughts. And now we go from Ukraine to Zurich. Oh, there's so many
hands.
So many hands and tabs that are under the here.
Yeah, I will start. Yes, thanks very much that we can be here and talk about our project. It's another project from Ukraine to Zurich, from war to cycling. But first I need your help, your hands. I'd like to know who commutes by bike to work in Zurich at least once a day per week. Well, it's not bad. It's what I expected. Can I ask you, how do you think, how safe do you feel on the streets in Zurich when you drive your bike from 1 to 10? 10 is very safe, 1 is war.
Like
In general.
in general.
Yeah. 5. So it could be better. We buy bicycle too. What happened?
Command enter.
You're still connected. Sorry for the English.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's what we are talking about. I'm not from Zurich, so I'm coming by train. Try not to get hit by a tram when I need the train station. But what I hear from my colleagues, they tell me it's a dangerous city for bicycles. And it's not only a gut feeling, it's actually, you can find it in the data. We have 2 accidents per day in average, but that's highly underestimated. So the insurance company, they talk about 90% unreported accidents. Only in Zurich, it's the most dangerous city for bicycle in Switzerland. And it's getting worse every year. That's the yearly accidents for bicycles. Here in 2020, we had a new record, Corona. People didn't want to use public transport, didn't want to get Corona. 2021, a special year, we had a bad summer. It was raining summer and spring. And the statistician from Zurich think that's the reason why it drops there. And then 2022, a new record, 776 accidents. We're still waiting for 2023. The data probably in March. Let's see if it's a new record. I hope not. But that was the basic idea of our story. We had this feeling about the security on the streets for bicyclists, for bikers. And we wanted to find out or to answer 2 questions. Where is it dangerous in Zurich? And why? So why is it the problem? Why doesn't it change so fast as our cyclists like it? So we took that data that's from ASTRA, Bundesamt für Straßen, Office for Roads, something like that. They publish it every year. They get it from the police, from police reports. And we have each accident there. We have the exact location, GPS coordinates. We know the vehicles involved. Was it a car? Was it a bicycle, pedestrian? Pedestrians are not vehicle, but it's in there. And we have other data like severity. Was it just minor damage or was it a death involved? And we took that data and we made some analysis. We looked for patterns like DB scan, looked where are places which have many accidents. And we tried to overlay other data like tracks from the trams. Do we see like, are there many accidents near the tracks? There are. Yeah, we had different maps and information, and then we went to the head of road safety from the city of Zurich, and we talked to him more than an hour. He was very open to us, and explained, or we showed him the map and said, what's the problem there? And he told us what the problems are, what they change, what they will change, what they never will change because of politics. And we left the office and had a lot of information, and we decided then to make 2 stories, not only 1, and 2 very different kind of stories. You see it on the left side, that's the first one. Joana will talk about it just in a second. It's more like a common story because it has text inside, but it's heavily based on videos. So Joana was driving through the city at her hand somewhere. Yeah, here. Yeah. She drove a route which is typical for Zurich, and we explained the different places there. We put it in the printed newspaper as well, of course, without video. So that's the first one. And the second one is more for cyclists or people who think if they should cycle more. You put in your address or your start and your destination, and then it will generate the story. It will generate text and graphics based on your route. It will tell you how many accidents happened on your route the last couple of years. If you pass some places which are well known for their accidents, and you get this story based on your route. Yeah, and I think we jump in the first story now, and I press this.
Yeah, just let's dive into the first article. I guess many of you have experienced this too. When you're starting with a design project, you're always confronted with many challenges. And in the following, I would like to share some of the challenges that we were facing in this project. So firstly, as Simon has already mentioned, we figured out some dangerous spots in Zurich where many accidents happen, and we tried to connect those spots in our story. So this was a question of how to navigate through the story to us. Then we had some technical issues, especially during filming. So that took us many attempts. And lastly, we were wondering how we could bring this bicycle journey to life. So this was mostly a question of how to do a nice storytelling. The presentation has a little hiccup here. We'll be on track in a moment. No, all right. So as you can see here, we started with various sketches and ideas for the concept of the article. So we primarily wanted to focus on a big map of Zurich in the beginning, as you can see here on the left, with all of the accident data and combined with our sample route. But after some time, we figured out that that would have been way too complex, and that we actually wanted to tell two different stories in two different articles. So the first article should really focus on the perspective of a cyclist who rides through the city. So then we separated the video from the map. And the next step, we even reduced the design even more, just to have this video very big, and where the map should serve more as a rough guide for orientation. Capturing this perspective confronted us with the next challenge. We are more office people, and we are not so experienced with filming outside on a bike. So we first took a rather naive approach and installed a camera on a tripod that we taped on a bike frame. And this first seemed working okay, but then we saw that the picture was quite shaky, and we also could barely see the rider's handlebars, which was quite important to us. So then we did the whole thing again, this time with a GoPro installed on a chest strap. And this evened out the shakiness, and now you could also clearly see the handlebars even in the mobile version. So in the very beginning, we were thinking of showcasing an entire journey through Zurich, zipping from one accident location to another. But as you can see here, this video would have been way too fast. And let's be real, fast forwarding this way makes you feel more like you're on a roller coaster ride and not on a journey. So we took a step back from that approach again. So in the end, we split up the video into 5 sections. And then we lost a bit this continuous feeling of a journey, but instead we had the opportunity to give some background information and the text in between. So Now let's have a look at the article. All right. So as you can see here, right in the beginning, we take the cyclist perspective again, and we give a brief introduction to the topic supported by data of the bicycle accidents. Then our first stop is Schliefi in Wirtikon. This place, known for its tricky bend, has unfortunately been site for several fatal bike crashes. The cyclists slipped on wet leaves in autumn and crashed into these lampposts in the bend that you can see here. And we pause the video from time to time to explain what measures have been taken in order to diffuse the situation. So here a speed limit was introduced, and there were protective mats put on those posts. So now there are still accidents happening, but they're fortunately less severe. Then the upcoming video takes you to Limmatke, which is the place where most of the accidents happen, actually. And many of them are also self-inflicted. As you can see here, the lane between the tram tracks and the curbs can be extremely narrow, and this causes the cyclists to get trapped in the tracks and fall. And we also visit 3 other spots in Zurich. One is the food tunnel at Langstraße. Another is the intersection at Lochergut. This has also been the scenery of a fatal accident a couple of years ago where a truck took a bad turn. And our last stop is close to Bullinger Platz. And there was a priority bike lane installed, but actually it didn't do so much for safety. So, as you know by now, we did the same article. We did another article on the same data. And I have to find it right, yeah. So now we come to the second article. And as Simon has mentioned before, here the story focuses more on the individual reader and generates a reader-generated text. And it lets the readers map out their own cycle route. And just like in the first round, we were confronted with some challenges in the beginning. These were technical questions of how we should calculate all of those customized routes. And we were wondering how interactive this article could be for our users. So for the geographical data, we used the city's routes planner, the API, to get the most attractive bike route. And this is a screenshot from their website. As you can see here, it always returns 2 options. One is the attractive route and one is the fastest route. And the attractive route includes, whenever available, bicycle infrastructure. And the direct route is, of course, the fastest one. Yeah, by the way, in case you're wondering why we didn't use Google Maps and chose this route planner, it turned out that this one calculates the better bicycle routes. So we use this one. Then the next step, we have defined several start and end points, which are the 298 red points that you can see here. And using the city's API, we calculated a route from each point to every other point. So in the end, we had 88,000 possible routes. Next, we took the city's address directory and figured out the closest point to each, the closest address to each route point. So for example, if you're searching for Falkenstraße 11, where NZZ is, you will get the route from the Stadelhofen stop, because all of our dots are actually public transport stops. And in case you're wondering why we didn't address the API directly, first, it's very slow, and then it makes us dependent, and we would have had to negotiate with the canton, which we didn't want to do. So this is the start from the article, where in the beginning you enter your start and your end point, and then the route is calculated. And in previous versions of the map, user tests showed that the users wanted to interact more with the map because it had a bit the look and feel of Google Maps. But we then decided to reduce the design of the map and deliver more information in the article below. So then let's have a look at the second article. As you just saw, you can start by typing in your address, like your starting point and your destination. And then the route will be generated, hopefully. Yes. And yeah, then the article will be then generated in 3 key sections. In section 1, a chart illustrates your selected route as a flat line with all of the accidents. And when available, we included a quick summary of the causes of these accidents. What caused these accidents? Then there's a second chart that illustrates change over time and with the group by accident type. And in the last section, you can see or you can compare how risky is your route compared to all the other options. So your route might be quite risky if you compare it. All right. So just a little announcement, as Simon said before, we will get the new data for 2023 soon, and then we will republish this article. And yeah, no, thank you very much for listening, and we're looking forward to hear your questions.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. We do have some time for Q&As before continuing to eat and drink all the food before leaving. Does anybody in the room have a question? Oh, yeah.
Yes, thanks a lot for this informative and insightful presentation. If you go to the slide with the bicycle accidents,
In the article or in the
picture, the bar diagram with the trend of the bicycle accidents.
Ah, in total, you mean? Yes. Okay. This one?
Yes.
Okay.
I noticed that up to the year 2013, so the number is relatively stable, and from there we see that a steady increase in that year. Do you know why that is the case? No.
Maybe, I mean,
I think more people on the bikes, I don't know.
And I think also with e-bikes, there were more accidents happening.
Yeah. Or they started to track the accidents more. Just guesses.
Do you know maybe like the spatial distribution of those accidents, like in the Zurich area?
No, not compared to 2013. No.
Just before we take another question from here, Benji, is there any questions online?
Yes, there are.
Oh,
So
you're very well in the room, or should I switch?
if you can hear me, then I think that should work. We definitely can hear the answers very well.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, that's good then.
All right. So Jeremy Smith has actually two questions. The first one is a general one based on your team constitution, and he's interested in what is the difference between a data journalist and a visual journalist, if you could shed some light on that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I mean, these are all new terms, right? We're kind of defining our roles as we go along. It also makes our job very interesting. But in general, the data journalists will spend more time scraping data, researching data, cleaning data, and analyzing data. And they will potentially or often use our already provided tools that we have, so they won't do their own visualizations. And visual journalists do research as well, but they will do research more for infographics, for custom data visualizations, and work on multimedia projects, for example. So yeah, less of the data wrangling and data analysis. But every person in our team has kind of their own specialities, and they can sometimes overlap into the other group. Yeah.
Thank you. And if okay, I will continue with another question online. And Jeremy's second question was already answered. So the next question would be, you mentioned usability testing and that users wanted to interact with the map more. The question was, what type of sort of like user behavior tracking are you doing, and how does that maybe inform the continued work on some of your work?
So what type of user testing we did in this case? Did I get this right?
Yes, this was the question. Maybe you can also expand if this was a sort of like one-off, like special circumstances, or if you also do other user behavior tracking in your work.
We should do this more. This was also learning from this project because we did this quite in the end, and the product was almost finished there. In this case, we did an individual user test. So we were sitting beside the person and observing how they were dealing with our website or with this project. And in general, we don't do this so often. With bigger projects, we try to do this, and sometimes we can track how users are interacting with our articles, for example, in election dashboards and things like that. Yeah, can you add something?
What did we use for the map? Hot point? Hot chart. Yeah, for the map of Ukraine, there was also something we could use from our audience or data team, where we could see exactly where people are clicking, and we use that to kind of change a few design details then in the end. But it's not institutionalized. You have to want to do it, and then there's different options like Hotjar, individual user testing, and we also have a group of readers actually who are willing to be part of a test group. So there's the possibility to do that, but we often do it for things like tools, or like we made a Coropleth tool, so we tested different designs there with those user groups.
Thank you so much.
A couple in the room as well. So there's one at the back.
It's actually kind of a follow-up to that previous question, which is that just the raw number of accidents isn't necessarily a very good metric for seeing how dangerous the city is, because you're interested in the number of accidents per cyclist, maybe, or probably even better would be number of kilometers or number of hours would be a better way of comparing, because I mean, just as someone who's been riding in Zurich for over 15 years, I can tell you there were many fewer cyclists in 2011 than there were this year. So that's purely anecdotal, right? And I'm wondering if you tried to quantify that and analyze that, or if you had difficulty getting data that would allow you to do that.
And both at on the last map, on the last chart, you see where you see how is your route in perspective of all the routes. That's calculated per kilometer. So we get points to each accident, and the higher the severity, the more points you get, and then calculated in per kilometer. I tried to get data for how many bicycles are on the route. There are stations, counting stations in Zurich, and there was a project just a couple months ago. I think it was a bachelor degree project to try to map it on the whole city, but it was not, not so representative. So I think the data is not yet where it should be to get that perspective, but that would be the best way if you have that data. Yeah, absolutely.
I think there's one in the front here.
Yeah, so first of all, just thanks a lot for this presentation. It was really interesting for me to see, also because I read this article, for example, and it was exciting to hear about the background. I'm also I subscribe to the NZZ, so I guess I pay for part of your salary. And, I'm curious to learn more about that. How do you decide what an article gets made? And if it's not the NZZ has a political agenda that I sometimes agree with and sometimes not, and I'm curious, like, is there an issue sometimes that the boss would say, like, well, that's very nice, but it doesn't really fit our profile, or vice versa? Like, how does it, how do you end up doing this article, not that one?
Good question. Wants to take it?
I can only speak for me. I never had that's the boss of the boss of the boss that I couldn't do a story. I couldn't do all stories. How do we choose a story? Sometimes people from other our colleagues or journalists come to us and have an idea. Sometimes we have an idea and looking for companies. Yeah, but I mean, if you look at this story, our general agenda is not so bicycle friendly, and this proves that we can do other stories which are not based on our agenda. So I don't know how you choose your story.
Yeah, mix of things. I mean, it's very, I'm also part of the international department, so I'm kind of embedded into the international department, and there it's very news driven, very focused on what's happening politically. It still kind of has this, the journalists there still kind of have this task to be kind of chronicles of our time in a way, even though we're moving away from that. And then in that, I try to find things that have visual potential, then also interesting data, interesting visual photography that's interesting, yeah, just a little bit of different perspective than only text and what did this politician say, what did this politician say, but provide our readers with more of an overview, provide them with more depth of information through this visual design. Yeah, and I think also it's very individual driven. What, like, if you as a journalist want to do this story, it's mostly possible. Like, I would say, say the same thing. Yeah, thank you.
There's, I think, 3 more in the room, but Benji, is there any more online?
Yes, I'm happy to throw in one from online. So Matthias Stahl asks if you could talk a little bit more about building or the process behind building the map tiles. And I assume that he refers to the custom map of Zurich that you have shown with the sort of like simplified design instead of the just straight up Google Maps design. So these beautiful bluish custom tiles, how you went about generating those.
So what is the background of this maps technically, or?
Exactly, yes. They look customized, right? They look very stylized and very pretty. Exactly. So how did that come together?
Yeah, in this case, you can see it here. Maybe this we're using Map Tiler, and we had the possibility to customize that a bit. In this case, yeah, from a design approach, I started with categorizing those groups of accidents. So for me, a bad accident or a fatal accident was red or dark red. And then I think it's a nice contrast just to blue, so you can really distinguish the colors then. So often it's a very logic process in infographic design. And yeah, but we had the spaces, so this was quite, we were thankful that we could use that and not had to build the whole map by ourselves. You can also here zoom in, but you can see it ends by the city borders, so cannot go further on. But here, yeah, we also, when you zoom in, you can decide what level of detail you want to see. Yeah. Does that answer a bit the question?
Thank you so much. I assume so. And if not, then Matthias can follow up. Thank you.
Maybe one from the room, the lady at the back there.
It's for Adina. On your map, you were doing on the events happening in Ukraine. You said you already mentioned that you build up the map in like one day. I would be interested in the more like technical backbone that was required to come up with the map in like such a short amount of time. So what pretty hard, like what was essential to.
Yeah, maybe Simon, you can also say then afterwards. I mean, this was the first time we used Map Tiler, so this is also Map Tiler.
Based on Mapbox at the beginning?
It was true. It was based on Mapbox. Then Mapbox became too expensive, and we had to switch to Map Tiler. That's true, yeah. And yeah, so there's like, do you know Map Tiler? Yeah. So there's styling done in Map Tiler, and then we use like Michel, who is the developer here. He uses Svelte.js to bring it into our system, to add the interactivity, to also some of the layers need to be kind of reordered. Yeah. But is that what you meant? Yeah.
And then this for data, you use that spreadsheet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what kind of events was it? Where was it happening? Adding the annotation text.
Exactly. I mean, this is a really nice pipeline that Simon built through it's kind of Google Sheets where everybody has access to it, and then you can you run GitHub actions to update the map. So it's fairly easy now that this pipeline has been set up, and we've used it for other maps now as well. Yeah. Yeah.
And the good thing was we were 3 people from 3 different departments, so visual, from designer and tech, and me as a data journalist, and we worked on that, only on that. We have no story then, but probably the only time I had only one story to do because it was so important. And yeah, when you have the full power from your bosses, you can then you can be fast, yeah. But it's not that we are always that fast. That's not unusual. Yeah.
Do you want more from online?
Thank you. But online, all questions have been answered.
We got one on the couch here.
Yeah, I have a question for the second article. You said that the API gives 2 routes, a direct route and attractive route with more of a bicycle infrastructure. So my question is, what kind of route did you use for the article, and would the kind of risk distribution that you showed, would it change depending on what route you chose?
Yeah, we had the attractive route, and the second question, I think you can answer better.
any good question I cannot answer. We did not check it, if it would change, if you choose the faster route. We decided as for the attractive route because our colleagues from the journalists who write about Zurich, almost everyone is cycling in Zurich, and they said that's what they normally drive, and yeah, the attractive route is better for taking it for our project. If that answers your question.
I've seen two other hands, one at the back, or maybe sitting down in the back there. Yep.
Okay, thanks, lovely presentation. Do you offer these stories also with different color palettes for people who are colorblind and stuff? If you're using a lot of red, especially in the Ukraine maps, so we can just strip it if we can't see red?
No, we don't. I'm sorry. Yeah, unfortunately not. Not that I know of. No. I mean, yeah. No, I'm sorry. Yeah.
But our basic color scheme is tested on red-green blindness, for example. So our primary colors that we use on the general graphics, you should be able to distinguish.
We got lots of shades of red and
yeah,
which would be very difficult to keep up with.
Yeah. No, definitely there's a lot of room for improvement there, I think. Yeah. Thank you.
Then the other one, yeah.
I have more of a methodological question for all of you. I'm interested in what comes first. Do you look into the data and then you decide on the story that you want to write, or is it the other way around, that you have like a hypothesis, what could be a nice story, and then you scrape some data and put something up? So in science, you're quite bound to do one thing, like you shouldn't analyze the data before you have a hypothesis, but you as a journalist, you're not constrained to that kind.
Do you want to take the question?
Mostly we have a hypothesis, yeah, and then we scrape the data, and sometimes we have to cancel the project. Yeah, what the answer we were looking for.
You have an example?
Can you ask me that? And I mean, for that, like it is user generated or route generated. So in this case, we didn't have a hypothesis, so we wanted to just tell the story based on the user's input.
Yeah. That's maybe more a question how strong the hypothesis is. Like there's not this rigorous way of saying we believe this or this. Sometimes it's a very strongly worded or clear hypothesis, and sometimes it might be just more a sense like, okay, this is weird, or like, why could this be? And then you start looking at the data, and then you might develop a stronger hypothesis where you can really say, okay, does this hold true? Because it's also this kind of sense of like, is this important? Like, what's going on there? This kind of, that's very important for this kind of work, I think. That's a kind of curiosity then. Yeah. Would you agree?
Yes. I think we only have time for one more question, and then afterwards feel free to come up and ask them personally, but on the couch here.
Thanks. Very nice presentation here. This project on that. I would like to know more about the success. How successful is it? I mean, you put a lot of work in it, and then how do you have data? How long is it used? Is it used only when the people, the archive is online and so on, or do you have also data about the long-term needs and how much time do people spend in average? That's, for example, in this database. Have you data on this?
I only know about the Ukraine map. I think it was one of the most popular or successful articles last year. And here we also tracked the data, but I don't remember exactly. I think this one was the one that was working a bit better. The second one, but was it the other way around?
Renner was underwhelming. for the effort we put in, but we knew that we could publish it next year when new data is coming published, and we could publish it every next year, so that at the end the effort is hopefully good spent. But yes, we track how long the readers are on it and which one they click. Always a question of where is it on the front page. We published both stories at the same time, I think. So the first story with the videos was big on the news on the front page, and the route planner was a bit smaller without the picture, and then people click more on the big image. So it depends a lot where it's positioned on the website.
Yeah, but the good thing.
It's still in use, and we still find it on the web.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we think there's a continued use?
I haven't looked here this project, but the Ukraine map is still used. Yeah, every day. I think we try to do stories which are very intense or needs a lot of work, that they can work, you know, a longer time. We call that
Long tail.
long tail. Yeah. Stories which are not very successful at their first day, but during time comes up.
Yeah, and the good thing with online is that we can always make improvements, and here we will republish it again. And I think this is more a summer topic also with bicycles, so maybe people will, by searching, find us more in summer. But this can also be related to how good it's been, how much people are looking at it.
What are better, rainy days or sunny days?
Good. I think we can just wrap it up there. I want to give him another round of applause for such a great presentation. And feel free to stay, and we'll start moving people out at like an hour-ish. I would appreciate all the food and drink being eaten and consumed, so feel free to stick around and chat. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.